Now, I've not reviewed an EV charger on my channel for quite a number of weeks, and that's because I've not really had anything new to look at. Well, today that's changed. I've got a charger here from Simpson Partners. Now, not only is it extremely stylish and probably the most stylish unit I've looked at yet, but it's also got some new safety features that I've not seen on other chargers before. So if you are looking for a new charger, or you're an engineer looking for a new charger to install, this video should tell both of you exactly what you need to know. And if you know exactly what you want to know about this charger, there's skip points at the bottom of the video for you to skip to the exact part of this video that'll tell you the information that you need to know. Now, as you can see, we've got two boxes of Simpson Partners, and we will explain why that is in a minute. Now, inside the box, you get a couple of bits. You get a waterproof grommet for bringing the cable through, you get 2 spare screws, which I'll explain in a minute, and you get 3 washers with some plastic grommets on, which I haven't read the instruction book, so I don't know. In the instruction book, you've obviously got a customer welcome pack and an installer pack telling you how to install it. Now, the reason I got 2 boxes and not 1 box isn't because it comes in 2 boxes, it's because Simpson Partners wanted to send me 2 of their faceplates designed to show how different the chargers can be. Now, you can have these different faceplates and interchange them. So if you want the wood lid, they do a wood lid. If you want a metal lid, they do a metal lid, and they do metal bodies in pretty much every single colour you can possibly imagine. If you can't find a combination you don't like, I'd be very surprised. There's hundreds of different changes. Now, this is an actual real wood at the top, from what I can tell. It's not fake wood. It smells like real wood. It sounds like real wood. Personally, I don't know if I'd go for a real wood if I wanted really longevity on my charger. I think I'd rather have the metal wood. I'm sure it's engineered and it's been really well done, but I know what wood can be like in different heats, temperatures, warmths, climates, etc. So personally, I'd probably go for the metal lid, but this is die-cast. It's a really well-made casing, very, very strong. And the lid, again, is very well made. Like I said, you can change these with just these 4 screws and take them off. Now, getting to the charger, I've already unscrewed it. So there's 4 screws to keep this lid on, and the 4 screws mean that you can just unscrew them and lift that off. He says as he struggles, but I am trying to do it with making less noise through my microphone as possible. But yeah, that comes off, and that's the casing. Now, what's interesting is this is held on by 1, 2, 3 screws. So we got 1 screw there, 1 screw there, and 1 screw that actually isn't for the lid, that's for something else we'll get to in a minute. But there's these 2 screws here that hold this lid together. Now, these are captive screws, which means that you can't unscrew them. They are locked into the casing and you can't lose them. And before I mentioned, they provide you with some spare screws, and I'll tell you why. Because to take this off, we're going to take these 2 screws off, undo this captive screw at the back. Now, that captive screw stays in. These 2 screws, these come out, and these are these large 2 screws here. So we take them out. They're very small and they're not captive, which means when you as an engineer or you as a customer decide to take them out, you will lose them, which is why they've provided you spares. This comes off, and on this we have the charge flap, which is that there. We've got a little thing here which presses a button on the inside of the charger here on the left. There's another little button on the right. We've got a light ring of LEDs here. We've then got, let's have a quick look. We've got a bottom entry hole here, and we've got a rear entry hole here. So we've got 4 screws here to take the main cover off. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and again, small, tiny, really easy to lose, not captive. I hope Simpson Partners listen to this part of the feedback of the video and make them captive, because they will get lost and they are tiny. Annoyingly, a little pet hate of mine is they're also, those 4 screws are different to those 2 screws. Why not just make them all the same screw? I don't know. That's a very interesting idea. Yeah, so we got these holes here for holding it to the walls. We've got 1, 2, 3. So you go 1 at the back, 2 at the top, and then we've got those waterproof seals to just give it a waterproof flush finish. It's IP54. Now, the reason it's IP54 is assume it's got these vents here at the top. So they are covered when the main charge cover's on the top, but there's obviously a bit of exposure there. There's casing holes at the back, which give it a little bit less waterproof resistance. Now, I personally would like to see a higher IP rating on all charge points sold in England, but it's by no means the lowest IP rating I've seen. There is charge points also sold at IP54, and for the UK market, it's perfectly acceptable, it's perfectly allowed. But personally, I'd like to see all manufacturers maybe just jump up a little bit on those IP ratings to be, you know, just a bit more solid. But to be honest, what I tend to find is a lot of these companies could get higher IP ratings, just haven't decided to test to it because they don't want to pay the extra certificate cost, which I get. Another little note about this casing is, again, it's a new company, it's very new to the market, and usually companies make a lot of skipping when it comes to making casing, but this is moulded. It's a moulded casing. They've obviously paid for a mould to have it moulded properly. It looks, yeah, it's definitely a moulded casing. So they've spent some money on that. Yeah, you can see where the moulding injection's gone in there. So it's a very well made case. A very well made case for a company that's just launched. It's better than some other charge points that I've seen being sold, that, you know, in my mind, I just personally, I'm not a big fan of. But this casing is very, 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 very high quality, especially the top part. Now, I will tell you this, holding this part, I actually thought this front cover was the heavy part. It's actually the circuitry in here. It is heavy. They've used some really heavy components, or they put some house bricks in here somewhere. It is a heavy charge point. What I'm also impressed with is the amount of technology they've got in here for the small footprint size. Now, with the whole charger, when it's made together, is about the same size as an A4 piece of paper, so it's a really well put together charge point. Now, the charge point they've sent me is a 3-phase unit. They do 3 versions. They do a single phase version with no light on the front, and it doesn't do some certain features. From memory, I think it doesn't do solar and it doesn't do fuse protection. They then do a second unit further up, which has these light rings around it here, which I keep talking about and not showing you. So it has these light rings here on the single phase unit and has solar integration and fuse protection when it's released. Now, at the moment, the time that's making this video, they don't sell the CT clamp. It's going to be a wireless CT clamp. They said they're going to do some more videos with me when it's released and show me how easy it is to set it up and calculate it and work it on. And it's wireless and it complies to all the regulations they're required to meet for CT clamps and solar export. So when that comes out, I will get hold of it. I will hopefully do a video with Simpsons and Partners on how to put that in. But if you do buy the second model in single phase or the 3-phase unit, you won't be able to do it at all. So just bear that in mind. The top 3-phase unit and all the other 3 units, they've all got pen fault built in. They've also got another thing which will explain why we've got extra connections here. Now, this is obviously, like I said, a 3-phase unit. So we've got CPC there. If you don't know what CPC is, it's earth. If you're an electrician and you don't call it CPC, have a word with eFix, they'll tell you why. The next one is a neutral. The next one is phase 3. Yeah, 2, 1. So we've got 1, 2, 3, neutral, earth, and then this one right here, right on the end, that's called a shunt. Now, I'm not an electrician, and I've tried to understand a shunt control as much as I can, but basically, a shunt is a fault that can occur in a charger that most other charge manufacturers don't. I've never seen a charge manufacturer actually fit one of these to a charger at all. And a shunt, basically, if it detects a fault of an open connection, but a welded connection, it's basically stuck in the open position and it's a fault's occurred and it can't turn itself off. The shunt will detect that and trip the charger. It will actually turn off the breakers for the charger. And that is very, very, very unique. I've not seen it built in a charger before. I've seen chargers that have a shunt protection, but they're sold with a separate device. In other words, the charger doesn't have it, the charger doesn't have any pen fault, and there's a separate company that make a device that does the pen fault and the shunt protection. Well, this actually has the shunt protection built in, and it has pen fault built in. Now, out of pretty much all the manufacturers I've looked at, there's only this and another charge point that I know of that can do 3-phase pen fault. And this has another unique feature. It can not only do 3-phase pen fault, it can also do 3-phase pen fault. But this I'm going to install on single phase, and it will still do pen fault on that single phase, which is nice to see. Now, the circuitry, we have here, we've got a CT over line 1, line 2, line 3, the neutral, and a CT over the earth. So they are doing some measuring on every single connection that comes in here, which I assume they've got some kind of clever way of doing the pen fault, looking at all the connections. We've got another CT that goes over the line neutral earth. No, it doesn't. The earth is the only one that doesn't go through this last CT here. The circuitry itself is, let's have a quick look, see if I can see inside. I mean, you won't be able to see this on the camera, but the board, this top board looks quite thin, really thin. Now, the tracks on it look really thick, you know, because obviously it's the high voltage track, so it is quite thick tracks. But what I've noticed here is this little bit of board snapped off. Now, this could be because the board is a little bit thinner than what I've normally seen, but it also could be because they put the screws right on the end of these terminal blocks. Right at the end of these, they put the screws. Now, best practice from when I was doing PCB design GCSE is that you didn't put screw holes at the end of the board because they'd snap if they got any, you know, shaking or abuse, and that's what they've done. And here it's been transported, it's been, you know, thrown around by a delivery driver, and that shaking, that stress has made it snap at the end of the board. Now, I rang Simpson Partners up and I told them it snapped. Now, they said if it was an installer and you got this with his snap at the end, they'd replace the board, they'd replace the whole charger. They'd send you a new charger, you send this back, and they'd replace it. If it wasn't snapped at the time it arrived, it won't snap. You know, it's basically, this is just from transportation. I've also suggested that they move the screws further in. They said on the next PCB run, that's exactly what they'll do. They're also going to reinforce them, they've promised me, so that will less likely to happen again. But mainly, you know, if you've got a board that is this design and it's not snapped when you put it in, don't worry about it. Once it's in, it's not going to get that shaking of a delivery driver throwing it across his van. There's some really high quality components here. There's components I've not seen before, some new relays in here that I've not seen before on another charger. There's a really decent power device factor here. The Type 2 socket can lock. It's got a locking pin on that. We've got the lights here. So let's get this in on the wall and let's get it installed. Once more, hey, the template isn't perforated. I opted for rear entry. Had a little bit of a struggle there with the screws falling on the floor a couple of times, so I hope that Simpson Partners make those captive or change them, or just make them just a bit less fiddly, a bit less small when you're putting them in. Again, captive would be the answer. The unit I went for is this cover with this, because I just think it goes well with my temporary testbed background, but obviously I was basically doing eeny, meeny, miny, mo on which one to actually fit. I think they both look pretty good against pretty much any background. Now, I have noticed that this actually is very, very similar colour to my Ring Doorbell Pro cover that I've got as well. So if you had it at the front of your house, near your door, front door, you know, terraced house sort of thing, this, you know, is a really good sort of matched up design with a lot of other things in your smart home. It can be more than just being a home charger. It can be, you know, more part of your home, sort of integrated into the design and the look of your house a bit more. Now, it is a 3-phase unit, this one, but obviously I've wired it up with single phase on my test bed system because I've only got single phase power here at the moment. Now, to do the initial installer check, we have to obviously do checks on the pen fault system. So that is all done by the installer app. So if we go over to the installer app now, and I'll do it live on the recording, that way we know exactly what you're seeing, and you're seeing, you know, I'm not cheating anything when we're going through exactly how it is. So the charge point itself will connect to here via Bluetooth. So I need to go to installer, type my installer pin number in, and then connect to this charge point. Once it's connected, it will tell me it's single phase, mains voltage, and it's awaiting a pen test. It's restricted to 32 amps. We can change that to lower ampage if we want. It's waiting for an RCM test, and there's no Wi-Fi on it. So we'll do a quick pen test by pressing test on there, and it's passed the pen test fault straight away. And we're RCM test, so we'll test that as well. Press test on that. Charge point just made a small click noise. It tripped. RCM tripped. Reset RCM, and I clicked again. And yeah, RCM test passed. So it's done both the tests on there. So I know a lot of the other charge points do pen fault tests automatically, but they don't actually tell you it's, you know, done that test. So it's nice to actually see that there's a pen fault test on there, because as an engineer, you might not have any equipment to test pen fault. As far as I know, there's no testing systems for testing pen fault. So the fact that you can see it has been tested and it does work on the screen, on the app, is a really, really nice feature for me. The other couple of things to mention about their pen fault test is their pen fault system works a little bit differently to everyone else. Now, we saw inside they've got basically a CT clamp over every single connection. Some of the other charge points that I've tested from other manufacturers, I won't mention one of the big ones, they can trip on pen fault, but they need a test to earth, and that test to earth is usually you, the person, touching the car's body paintwork while on good solid ground, and it goes, there's earth, and it uses you as the earth to test that there's a fault. Now, it will trip very, very quickly. You'll likely only get a very mild, very quick electric shock, but you still get a small electric shock. Now, Simpson Partners say in their literature that means that if you had a pacemaker or you're very vulnerable, it could cause, you know, even that small electric shock could be extremely dangerous. So having something that trips without needing to trip by using an earth, as in you, then that is a really, really unique system. Obviously, it's also got DC leakage protection on this. You don't need to connect it to your Wi-Fi. If you haven't got internet or you haven't got Wi-Fi, it can still run semi-smart via your iPhone. Your iPhone connect by Bluetooth and talk to the charger, so you can connect your certain features like charge delays, have a look at the tariff of when it's connecting. But we'll get into that when we go into the customer app now. You just download it straight off the App Store. As soon as you download the customer app, it's exactly the same as the installer app. You download it, you find your charge point, you press your charge point, it asks you for the PIN number, which should be on the provided card that came with your charge point, and it connects. There's no app sign up. You don't have to log into Google, create an account, give them your email address. In fact, at no part in this app can I find a way of entering your personal details like your email address so they can solicitate you with spam. There's no option of adding your details. It just remembers your charge point in the app. That's it. Now, whether the app would eventually forget who you are, software updates, change your phone, new users, so just keep that PIN number safe because you may eventually need it again. But it's a really nice, smooth idea to have no way of, you know, signing up. It just works straight away, straight out of the box without any messing around. I like that. Now, you can connect it to the Wi-Fi, which is what I would do. If you choose not to connect it to the Wi-Fi, charge point will still work. It'll still do charge delay, smart stuff. It'll just use the Bluetooth on your phone when you're near the charge point. But I personally connect it to the Wi-Fi. You can have all the automated firmware updates that just happen to the charge point. You can talk to the charge point when you're not near it. Just adds a bit more functionality. To do that, go to the cog, put your Wi-Fi details in. Great. You can set your charge costs, so you know what each charge sessions cost you, and you get an idea of what the billing costs. Now, to add that, you go into the settings and there's a section there to add in your off-peak and on-peak time costs. Now, there is a bug in here which I found out. Now, I added in my Octopus Go rate, so I put my off-peak, so my peak rates in first and then my off-peak rate. Now, my off-peak rate for Go Faster starts at 8:30 p.m. So I typed 08 and it went to 12 o'clock. So I thought, well, maybe I need to delete that section first. So I pressed deleted it all out and pressed 08 again. It went 12 o'clock again, and I realized because I'm putting a 0, it thinks I want 12 o'clock. So what you have to type if you want 8:30 p.m. is just 8. But this wasn't intuitive. It took me a long time messing around. I recorded this section of the video several times because I tried to do it live on the video. It was driving me potty, and then I worked it out that you just had to just type 8. Now, what would be nice from Simpsons if they had a scroll bar for the time, just similar to the way you'd set an iPhone stopwatch, for example. That would be a lot better, a lot smoother. It would work a lot better, in my personal opinion, on the way the user interface works there. Once that's set, it's in, it's great, times are right. The charger itself, you can do a couple of things with it. Now, you can set a charge schedule. There's an option there for checking the charge schedule. Another annoyance, the charge schedule doesn't automatically come up with your off-peak rates. It should just say charge off-peak, charge schedule, and that should just be there. It's not. You have to set the time that you want it to charge. Obviously, there will be times where you want to charge off your out-peak deal, but it should just be there instantly to say always charge off-peak. At the time of releasing this video, it doesn't work with Octopus Agile, but Simpson Partners have told me that's coming. Again, like I mentioned, at the moment it doesn't do solar, but it will do. They've got a CT, wireless CT clamp coming. It currently doesn't do fuse protection. Again, wireless CT clamp coming, so it will do both of those things very soon, and I will revisit these issues soon. So if you click the notification bell on the video down below, when you click subscribe, you'll find out when these features are done, and I'll do a video on them again. The charge point itself, we have an override button on the left. Now, all charge points sold under the new smart regs can't charge during peak hours. They're automatically locked out. So if you want to charge during peak hours, there's an override button there. There's also an override button in the app. If you press the override button in the app, you'll see it light up. If you press the override button on here, the app will light up that you've overwritten it. So it works on both, which is nice to see. You've got a status light that's viewable here on the left at all times. White means it's perfect, and then there's a different section of colours, and there's a selection of what those mean in the manual. And if it goes red, it can mean a couple of different things. We've also got a button over here on the right hand side, which is the installer button, which actually does nothing. Now, whether Simpsons change the way this button works in the future, and it might do something user based or installer based, that would be nice to see. They could do a couple of different things, so hopefully we'll see that. Now, the problem with the override button is you don't know you've pressed it, so maybe they could have that button as the override and then that button as a non-override, so you can always be sure if you've overridden it or not overridden it. You know, that would be just a nice little feature there. The lights here don't come on all the time, so you can turn the status light off in the app, which is great. But you can also, when you pull this open, these lights light up so you can see the charge port at night. You can find where your charge port is. They come on slowly and elegantly. They don't just flash on. Then it's not a flashy charge port with loads of lights that are going to, you know, annoy you. It looks great for the day you install it, but then looks really tacky a couple of weeks later. This is an elegant, pretty, really well-designed charge point. In fact, Laura, my wife, said it's the only charge point I've had recently where I've reviewed it, and she actually likes it enough that she wants me to stick it on the side of our house, and that is an approval sticker off her. I mean, usually she said that she prefers the smaller charge points because they're more discreet. She said this one, although you know it's a little bit bigger than those really tiny mini charge points, it's a little bit bigger, not much bigger. I mean, it really is still small, but it's an attractive charge point. It blends in with the features of your building. You can change all the colours, and you can find something that really, really suits. Now, these lights in here, they turn off and on based on when this magnet sensor detects when they're on and off. So when the lid's shut, it's not wasting power with those LEDs, they're turned off. That's a nice little feature I like. Now, the only problem with this charge point that I don't like is the fact that it's untethered. I prefer to have a tethered charge point personally because every car's now Type 2. You want to plug it in. People from Simpson Partners used to work for a company called Anderson's. You'll have a look if you see the directors, you'll realise it's the same people that used to work there, used to be part of Anderson's and set that up. And they do obviously a famous charge point with a cable wrapped around it, but it's a very large charge point. It's a much larger charge point than this. It'd be nice to see Simpson Partners taking some of that design skill that they put into this and their previous work at the previous companies and designing something that's got some sort of charge point secure, you know, putting the charge point away, making the cable look a bit neater. You could wrap this cable around, but it would just spoil this lovely, elegant design. If you want it to look pretty at the front of your house, obviously no charger with a cable on it ever looks pretty. You know, they just don't look right. They're either big and bulky because they're trying to manage cable management, or they just have a coil of mess around somewhere. So it would be nice to see if they can design something around this size platform, but with the cable more integrated in somehow. I don't know how they do it, but there is a big argument from a lot of people. Untethered charge points are better because the most damage point of any charger is the cable itself being run over, damaged, constantly being bent. So there is an argument to say that if you have an untethered charge point, you can take it out if it gets broken and repair it by putting a new cable back in. Now, this is a three-phase unit, so you can use a single-phase or three-phase cable on it. This is obviously a single-phase cable. When you do put it in, it's very flush to the charge point. It's very flat. Some untethered charge points, they stick out and protrude the cable quite far out. This doesn't. I mean, it's very much flush into the size of the design of the charge point, which is neat, makes it a lot nicer. If you do want to make it a tethered charge point, there is an option inside the app to lock the cable directly into the charger. So if you do want a tethered charge point and you do want to wrap it around, or you do want some cable management system, there is an option to lock that cable directly into the charge point if you wish. And personally, I don't know if I would, because it is such a pretty charge point without anything on it. It might actually persuade me enough to go untethered again and pull the cable out of the car every time I need it. I want to know what your opinion down below in the comments is. If you think you prefer tethered or untethered, what you think of this design. I definitely think it's one of the smallest, nicest charge points I've reviewed for quite some time. I will be doing some more updates on this, as I said, so make sure you click that subscribe and notification bell. Thank you very, very much for watching this week's video, and I'll see you again next week. Goodbye.